All right, so I'm going to get started, and like I said, you could stop me along the way, and happy to share more detail as we go. Let's see, is this working? There we go. So, I mean, this is true of all the programs, and it's definitely true for the higher education program. We definitely follow the School of Ed mission and goals, which are lifelong learning, the whole person, promotion of service and justice for all, and we follow the real framework, which is respect, educate, and advocate and lead. Through all our courses, we try to emphasize these missions and goals throughout our program. Another very key one that I think expands on the justice area of our missions and goals is our anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice commitments. And so we do try to emphasize this through our curriculum, the things that you're reading, our discussions that we're having. We have an array of folks that I'll introduce you to through a slide in terms of who teaches in the program. I, of course, being the director and faculty, I'm one of the core faculty, but we also have other folks that come in who also bring in a wealth of knowledge and experiences that informs this commitment to social justice. And so it's part of the design, it's part of the curriculum, it's part of our pedagogy too. We try to be inclusive and considerate of different folks that are coming from different backgrounds. And we also value the diverse perspectives of different students in our classroom. Some of the benefits of the higher education program at LMU is it's a cohort model. So folks come in summer session 2 and you're with the same folks throughout. There is opportunities, especially in the fall, and most likely there's going to be more opportunities to come. But for right now, in the fall, there's an opportunity to engage with the second year cohort. So as folks coming in the first year, you will take a class with second year students as well, so that it's one of the assets of the program of having a small cohort size, like the relationships that you build with the individuals in the classroom. But we also feel that it's a great opportunity to meet across cohort, meet other students, to build those networks as well. Because we find that that's when folks could bring in more innovation, support one another as we work towards a better world in higher ed, I would say. The classes are really small. It's another benefit. So you have direct access to me and the other faculty. The small classroom sizes also allow for greater collaboration with greater support across the students as well, like building relationships across the cohorts. There's a lot of very, very individualized attention. We have expert scholars and practitioners as well. So we have folks who are researchers in the area of higher ed, but also practitioners who are practitioner scholars who work across LMU. Sometimes we have faculty come in from even outside of LMU to provide that perspective as well, in terms of like the practitioner role in terms of higher education. Part of our coursework requirements is also a direct fieldwork application of theory and practice. So you do have a class that's going to be theory to praxis, like learning about the key theoretical frameworks in higher education and how they will apply. And then you have a chance to apply it through a fieldwork opportunity. And the fieldwork, it ranges. I encourage students to find and pursue fieldwork opportunities that are something that's important for them. Sometimes students look for fieldwork opportunities that maybe they want to build a particular skill set. Like it's not necessarily a role, but there's a skill set that I have that I'm still trying to learn. Like for example, I've had students in the past who do they wanted to learn like budgets and write grants and stuff like that. So they sought opportunities where they could do that. Others want more, maybe they worked in the office where no student contacts, and so now they want that experience to have more direct student experience. And so we've had students to seek out fieldwork opportunities where they could do that. And so so the fieldwork is really a place to really tailor, like what other skill sets, what other areas. Maybe you worked in a particular institution for a while and you want to get like I've never taught at a community college. I want to see what it's like, or experience, working with students at the community college sector. What is that like? And those are the opportunities to engage in fieldwork in other places and in other spaces. It's very much the courses, the program itself is very much supportive of the working professional, the working full-time professional at that. And so all our classes are late afternoon or evening. We have all our classes on the same day of the week too, so that we could have opportunities to engage with one another across the cohorts. All our courses are either hybrid or online. Even the online courses, like there is opportunities to engage in person. Online courses, all that means is that majority of the class sessions have to be online. So at least 50% hybrid. It could be a little bit over 50% online, but there's a little bit more of the in-person. But that's how we structure our classes, and like I said, it's very much supportive of the working professional at LMU and other places. We have folks that are applying from at LMU, but also folks that are coming from other spaces as well, or other locations across Southern California. We also have had folks from other. Last semester, I had a student even take the class from Washington, D.C. So she was always online. So we also provide those opportunities for folks that are, not even if it is a hybrid course, we provide those opportunities for those folks. So here are some of the faculty, and then actually I have a new person to add on here, which is Dr. Kawana, I forgot how to pronounce her last name legit, who's the VP for Student Support Services at LMU. She'll be teaching a class this spring for us. The other core, like full-time faculty, would be Dr. William Perez, who does a lot of research around undocumented students or students who have since left the country, and so who are now who had an undocumented student status in the U.S. and since went to Mexico. So he's done research around that, done research around community colleges and also indigenous student populations. So he brings that perspective in. Dr. Terry, and the folks, you have the different titles across the institutions, but these are the other professionals across the institution who have taught as part of our program. And like I said, the other new person who will be teaching is Dr. Kawana Legit, who will be teaching in the spring. So in terms of what is sometimes folks will have they're curious to know, well, what does it prepare you for? Where do you go with a master's? And I myself have a master's in higher education, by the way. So some folks, it prepares you for administrative positions, but it also prepares you for, it can prepare you, if that's what you want, for a future career in academia, if you want to pursue that route too. But definitely does prepare you for the administrative leadership type positions. So a lot of students either you have an array, like we have students who want to be the academic counselors, like they want to be in a student facing position where they're working with students. So we have those students. We have students who want to be more in an administrative role. They want to be deans of student support services. They want to be directors of programs. We've also had students who want to start their own outreach programs. They see a need in their community and want to create it. And so they're pursuing that route too. There's a range of folks. In my previous institution too, some of my students there, some of them went into PhD programs because they want to go after their master's in higher ed because they want to be faculty. Some have gone into policy think tanks to do research and inform policy. What I like to tell students is we're going to give you a certain set of tools. You're going to learn different research, different theoretical foundations in higher ed, different ideas around the practice of higher ed and the administration of it and the leading of it. And in those courses, you have opportunities to explore particular areas that you might be interested in. So for example, I had a student last year who was really interested in athletics. He was formerly a baseball player and wants to be an athletic director one day. And so most of his coursework, most of his final papers were focused on the history of athletics or leadership perspectives in sports management and especially in intercollegiate sports. So every class has those opportunities where you're able to engage more deeply into something that you're interested. Like David, if you want to pursue something, go more deeply into college outreach and college access, there's definitely those opportunities to kind of go do a deeper dive, as I like to think of it. We like to fully integrate the coursework with the fieldwork experience, so in that theory to practice class, and then fieldwork, you'll be able to apply some of those things that you're learning. And it enables you to expand career options. So like we cover community colleges, we cover the private public sector of higher ed, religiously affiliated institutions, all of that, so that you have a greater understanding of like how these different types of institutions run and their role in society. Other program details you should know: it's a 2-year program, 31 units. You start summer session 2, both the first summer, when you start summer session 2 in June, and then the second summer after your first year, you're taking 1 course, so both in summer session 2. And then the rest of the time you have 2 courses during the academic year per each of the terms. And here's the coursework that you have. So we start off with leadership in higher ed, and it kind of gives you an overview of the scholarship in higher ed, and kind of prepares you for the next phase of the program, and prepares you for the rest of the classes that you'll be having. You learn the history of higher ed, the organization and administration of higher ed, the theory to critical practice, as I mentioned earlier. There is a course on Catholic higher ed and community college leadership, assessment research methods, field work, law and policy, all these different courses that will give you the different tools that I was mentioning in terms of like knowing knowing the things that you need to know in higher ed. What are the admissions requirements? There is a personal statement of intent, which I'll show you what are the guiding questions that you need to answer after this slide. Official transcripts, letters I put in parentheses S because there's one required letter, but there is an option for a second one if you want to include a second one. Sometimes folks really want to include, for example, like I highly recommend one of your letters be like a faculty who speak on your ability to do grad school, but it's not necessarily like a ding if you don't, like if you it could be a supervisor that could speak on your leadership or on your leadership capacities to do well. It could be a community member, it could be a mentor. And so sometimes students want to provide the letter, but maybe they're like, but they can't really speak to who I am. So I really want this mentor to write me a letter. And so sometimes I see 2 letters, but it's not like you're going to get an extra plus because you have 2 letters. I want to make that clear. It's just more if you feel like, okay, what would really be a strong letter for me is if I also include the second letter. That's the way you should think about it. There's also, after you submit everything, there's a virtual interview with me that you'll be having. It's over Zoom, and it's really to understand more about about who you are and why you're interested in the higher education program. And it's also an opportunity for you to ask more questions. The other key thing you should know that there's no GRE required. It's not necessary. It's not a good, based on research, it's not a good measure of success for students. And so we do not require the GRE for our program. These are some of the questions. Each question seems kind of long, but really is trying to capture anything about your experience, whether it's personal, academic, professional, or even your service experiences. How have those things informed different aspects of your decision to pursue a higher education program, the program of, or a career in higher ed? And so that's why it seems like they're really long, but it's really to capture different aspects of your experience that may be critical to how you want to present yourself in the statement. I also encourage students to really review our mission and our commitment to equity, social justice, anti-racism, and think about how maybe some of those experiences might align with those things. We really value and have a strong commitment towards that. And so we would really love to hear from you if there's things that you've already been doing, things that you have that you're interested that might align well with this mission and commitment. And this is just a quick overview. I think I will, I'll stop there, and I'll keep that up as part of the overview of the program and answer any questions that you have. Open to questions.
quick question. I didn't see a GPA requirement in that list. Is there a specific GPA that the program is looking for, or is that something that, again, is not being taken into consideration?
There is a minimum, and it might be an LMU required minimum, to be quite honest with you. But I think so. There's at least a minimum of 3.0, but there has been cases where folks fall a little under, and so there is opportunities to. I forgot the actual. There's a form like you would ask admissions, so you would email SOE admissions email. And ask them for this. Erin, do you happen to, you're fairly new, but do you remember
Yeah.
that form that they're supposed to submit if you fall under that 3.0?
Yeah, so basically, if it's under 3.0, we'd look at first your last 60 semester units of your undergrad degree. And if it reaches about a 3.05 with your last 60 units, then we can use that. If it still falls a little short, yeah, there is a GPA exception request form, which would be a form that you would email us, we would send it to you. It also comes with a smaller kind of version of the personal statement just to talk about, what might have been going on during that time to why your GPA might not be at that 3.0. And then we will add that to your application for the program director to review.
Yeah, and it happens, like especially in the current context that we're in. I mean, the last couple years have been challenging for folks in terms of like if they were completing during the pandemic, it was a challenge. And so we have had those cases where folks, are falling right under. So yeah, don't shy away from it. If that's any of your case or anybody else that are applying that's kind of falling under that, just reach out.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the field work element of the degree, if how much a student gets to decide about their field work, or is it more assigned, or how that part of the degree works?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically the semester before that, and even the semester leading to that semester before, I like to meet with students to kind of start like really thinking about it. I kind of throw it out there like, hey, eventually start thinking about this, but really that 2 semesters before it actually happens, we really start thinking about strategy. Like, okay, it is very much driven by whatever you want. So I encourage students to think about, is there an area of higher ed? Or let me back up a little bit. We have different folks that come to the program with different goals in mind, right? Some people want this master's, like they want to stay in that same office, and maybe there's that opportunity for professional growth and like career advancement if they have this graduate degree. Other folks are like, I want to completely move out of the area I'm in. I want to go in a different direction of this. And so I want this opportunity to expand my horizon, open doors in different ways. And so I encourage students to think about like, okay, what is your ultimate goal and how can we use this field work to either get a foot in the door, start making the right connections? Can this be a person, can this potentially lead to a letter of reference for you later? Could it build a skill set for you depending on where you want to take this? So for example, I've had students, and I've taught this type of class before in a higher education program as well. So, and it's the same kind of scenarios. I've had students, for example, who didn't want to move offices. She just wanted to be able to, she knew a new leader was coming, for example, and she's going to need a particular skill set that she hasn't gotten. In terms of grants and budgets, like that, she knew that was coming, and so she was like, I need a fieldwork experience that's going to expose me to that and get me connected with folks at the university who could teach me those things and who could eventually be partners with me. So she didn't want to necessarily move, but wanted to prepare herself for what was coming, and so she took that fieldwork and did that route. I had another student who she wanted to go to the policy realm. She's worked in assessment office of a higher education institution, but wanted to go policy now. And so we made sure to connect her with a policy think tank to provide that opportunity for her. So she was able to engage in research and help craft some of the reports that they had that it was informing state level policy. So really it's driven by your goals, whatever it is that you want to do. And then I see my role when it comes to that fieldwork class, I see my role as your coach, like your professional coach. I was like, okay, like, are you getting the experiences that you want? Are you getting, because there is sometimes those things where you're like, I think this is a space that's going to provide this for me, but maybe you realize this doesn't work out. And so how can we navigate those spaces so you still have, you know, professional connection, but don't burn bridges along the way, right? So that's how I see it. But yeah, it's driven by you. That's the short answer. And I coach, you know, I coach you on the way to get there. So sometimes some students already have an idea, like I have a connection here and I want to work with them. Other times they're like, I want to go this route, but I have no idea where in higher ed I could get that, nor do I have the connection to it. And so I'll make the connections, and then another thing that why we start 2 semesters before. The 2 semesters before is to really think strategically. And then semester right before is the strategy game of like, I have students meet with at least 2 different locations so that you could really voice like what are some things that they're working on and how could there be alignment with what you need. Because sometimes even if like it's an office that might be a good space, like just based on what you know that they do, they might not have the capacity to mentor you or support you being in their office, right? Because it takes some level of support from whoever is your site supervisor to provide that extra support and experience, and such as they don't have the capacity, and that's okay. Then you go to a second one or whatever it may be. I always tell students, don't ever commit at the end of those meetings. You commit after, once you decide which one's the best place for you. And yeah, that's the process. We go through a process. We also have particular commitments that we want to make sure that you are both in agreement of what your experiences is. The minimum requirement for hours doing your fieldwork is 80 hours, and it might seem daunting, but it's actually a pretty small number compared to other programs across the country. Other places I know require like 300 hours, to give you a sense. Yeah, and then some other, there's always like this nervousness, especially we're working professionals, like where am I going to carve out the 80 hours? And it's tied to a 3-unit course. So in total, the 80 is a fraction of a class of a graduate level 3-unit class. And then there's like added components to the class. Like we do the class, for example, they're doing it right now. We did cover letter preparation, your professional philosophy statements. We did a session on networking. So all these professional skill sets to complement your skill sets that you already have. We do that during that fieldwork class, and it's a 3-unit class. So and it's one of your 2 classes. So that's one, and that's the second, and there'll be a second class that you take. All the students finish it, like they do the hours and sometimes do more. So that but yeah, there's always nervousness, like when am I going to do this? And that's another conversation you have with fieldwork sites. That's why it's important that it's driven by you, right? So like I could only commit to a virtual kind of experience, or I really want to come into your office, you know, is there opportunities for that? I could only do things on the weekend, like is there projects that I could work on with you, but we check in. I've had students like be in that situation where they meet with them bi-weekly to check in, or weekly, but most of their work happens out of business hours because that's when they could do their work. And so we have those types of things too. So yeah, that's what I help in terms of thinking strategy of how to negotiate those things.
Thank you.
Yes. Other questions?
Follow-up question. What is the graduation rate for students who participate in this program, and what are the tools, resources provided within the program to make sure that a student succeeds within the 2-year time frame that the program is designed for?
I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but I could tell you everybody finishes. Nobody gets left behind. And so we want to make sure that we identify, I mean, and that's one of the benefits of a small classroom size, is like we want to make sure that we build those connections with you. It doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Sometimes there's life circumstances that just has prevented students from continuing on. And so we've had those situations, but for the most part, everybody finishes in those 2 timeframes. I've also had the situation where somebody was, for example, switching, they were still working in the same institution, but switching to a new role that required way more of their time that they had anticipated. And so they switched, there's opportunities for you to switch to part-time status, like there is that too. So he's just finishing, he finished 1 year after the anticipated time, but he's finishing. We try to, there's also services that are part of LMU that I think are really helpful, that I think help me help students. And so we do have the LMU Cares services where I'm able to provide referrals for students when there's needs of anything, social, emotional, psychological, academic needs, financial needs, food insecurity, anything like that. Like they're there to help. It's a whole team of folks that will then reach out to you and provide those types of support. So there's those types of things. Academically, the Writing Center, you have supports there. Through library services, we have a dedicated School of Ed, a librarian that's dedicated to School of Ed. And so she's been amazing at helping students like navigating. Sometimes we've had students that it's been a while since they've written a paper and research papers. So they're like, how do I even navigate all this literature? And so she's been super helpful to them for that. What else do we have? We also have an academic advisor tied to the program. So aside from me as a direct support, and I also serve kind of in this advisory capacity, but you also have an academic advisor tied to this, Michael Sosimo, who he advises our program and also the counseling program. And so you have him as a support, and he's the one that provides all the informations like leading up to registration or courses to make sure that you sign up for and so forth. So he's also another form of support. All the folks that I work with, all the faculty, we all talk to each other. So when we say, hey, have you seen so-and-so? Are they okay? Like, well, we make sure that we are aware if maybe somebody might be struggling, having some issues outside of even school, to make sure that we provide the right supports. What else is there? I try to build that relationship with students too, so that you feel comfortable early on when you're feeling, something's happening or that you might be struggling, that we could kind of address it earlier. And yeah, so those are the different types of levels of support. And what else? I'm trying to think what else. Anything else I should add, Erin, since I think you have more of the lay of the land of the other supports?
Yeah, no, I mean, all of that sound great. Yeah, I mean, pretty much just like, how I'm sure a lot of you help students, particularly our admissions office is able to help, provide you any contacts that you need for any resources on campus. We also, we have information packets you can request on our website too. That's like, some of them are like 15 to 20 pages full of information that you can get, and has everything from all the classes you'll take, all the other additional resources, faculty, staff you can contact. So highly recommend getting one of those emailed to you, because it's a lot of info that you can, kind of hold on to.
Yep. Thank you, Erin. Mauricio and Rafael, thank you for joining us. Any other questions? Feel free to ask any questions. And you could also add maybe something you're thinking about, but there's also sessions after this as well related to which I could share as well, and maybe it'll trigger other questions for the other sessions that I want to make sure I promote for you all. So there's a financial aid session, career professional development. That's another great resource. So Simone Jackson, she's a new graduate career development person and the career services office, and she actually has a master's in higher ed, a long career in higher ed, and so she's been super helpful. So she's actually been the one she came in to do a networking session with the students, which was amazing. So that's another area of support that I think has been amazing. And you have a lot of alumni around LMU who are more than willing to help you. which I think speaks to the program. I'm fairly new to the program, but I think it has a long history of being a supportive space for students. And so, yeah, I hear a lot of like you, Jenny, mentioning like I have a colleague who went to the program and they encouraged it, and I hear that a lot. And so, yeah, so it's infamous for that.
It is.
Any other questions? Rashida, nice to, I think you had jumped in and it had jumped out. Any questions that you have, or Rafael, Mauricio, feel free to ask those questions. And good questions, Jenny and David. I think those have been great.
Hi, yes, good night. I'll let you know in a bit.
What did you say? I'm sorry. I think you cut off a little bit.
Yeah, I'll let you know in a bit.
Okay, sounds
I've
good.
just up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No. Okay. So I'm gonna be seeing applications. Sometimes folks have questions around like, what is that process like? So I got to show you what are the different requirements. Typically, as soon as all the application is in, and usually actually when it's near completion, there's folks in the School of Ed admissions team, so Aaron and Cheryl, other folks that are monitoring like who have applications coming in and so forth. And they've been amazing at alerting to me like, hey, like this application is fully complete except for the letter, just so you know. And so oftentimes we'll proceed with the interview while we wait for the letter. And so you'll get that too, and I'll remind you, just get the letter in or whatever it may be. Or they'll tell me like this is completed and ready to go. And so then the next stage is like after you complete it and SOE admissions is informed, they usually inform me pretty quickly. I don't know time frame, but I know it's quick. And then you'll hear from me within 2 to 3 business days to schedule you in for and the interview is over Zoom, 30 minutes. After that, I submit my review of your application and the interview together, and that moves back to School of Ed admissions, who then it goes to LMU's grad admissions, and you hear they're pretty quick. So like within 2 weeks and sometimes sooner, like I've had some students here soon, but it really depends on capacity and what's going on. Like right now they're really busy with all these grad open house programs. But yeah, typically it's pretty quick from there. Any other things? After this too, if you have any questions, I'm happy to meet with you too. Like Jenny, you had mentioned, like you're interested in curricular design and so forth. And although we don't have a specific class in that, we actually have folks in SOE that are experts in that. So you could always like I tell students, like this is our set required courses, and that's part of like a cohort where you have to take particular classes, but there's no rule around you taking like maybe there's a course that you really think it would be help add to your course. Like unfortunately I can't necessarily say like, oh, this could be in lieu of this course, but you could add something. I mean, you could always do that. And I know that it's under review right now to start a certificate in curricular design. So FYI, that would pair great with this program. So yeah, that's another thing to consider.
Yeah. Is that part of the Jeff Schwartz group? Is that
Schwartz?
I think he does more like online classes. I forget what it is.
I don't remember the name, but I'm also really bad with names.
Me too.
If you show me the picture, I'm like, yeah, that's him.
Yeah,
No, but there's actually a woman who's leading that particular program, and it's under review right now. I'm forgetting her name right now. She's in the School of Ed.
Okay.
I'll if you were email me, I could connect you if you want to ask more questions about that one. I'm blanking out right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Nope. All right. Well, I mean, you're free to come in and out. I encourage you to please join the financial aid sessions and some of the other sessions that are happening. So you could ask some questions around that, like what are some of the other supports that LMU would offer? And I'm gonna still be on though. We still have, what is it, 15 more minutes? I'm here. I'm here to answer questions. And again, you could always reach back afterwards if you're like, you know what, I was thinking about this, but I would love to pick your brain on it. We could chat about that too.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
All
later.
right, thank
See
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jenny. Hi, Rafael, right, Mauricio, Rashida, would any of you be able to, I would love to hear who you are, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, yes, my name is Rashida. I'm actually from Belize. So
Nice.
I came across the program actually when I was searching for programs for my daughter, and I thought I thought of LMU because it's actually one of the Jesuit institution to one in which I attend here in Belize. So I just found it interested, and I saw the higher education program, and I thought that was very interesting, and it would
Oh,
be that I would like to try.
that'd be awesome. So we'll have your daughter taking classes here and you taking classes here?
Not yet. She's still in the process of doing her application.
Ah,
So
gotcha.
we actually started our application. So
Oh, that's awesome. That would be amazing.
yes.
That'd be amazing. Is there any, well, thank you for joining us, Rashida. What time is it now in Belize?
Well, actually, it's about 10 to 8. So there's a 2-hour difference right now.
Oh, 2 hour difference. Oh, not too bad, right?
Yeah, not too bad.
I had a student apply last year from she was in Hong Kong, so we really had to coordinate schedules for interviews.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
like nighttime for me and morning for her, like really
yeah.
early for her. I was like, oh, this, like we only had like a 2 hour frame where it was like a okay time for both of us.
Okay.
It was
But
great.
yes,
The 2 hour we could do. We could do 2 hours.
yeah.
My family's from Mexico, from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico,
Okay.
and they're on a 2 hour difference. So we're like, okay, we could do 2 hours.
Yes. That's good.
Well, is there any questions, Joshia, that I could answer for you? You know,
Actually,
go
yeah,
ahead.
not quite yet because I actually wanted to sitting on the other information here, the financial aid, the career development, and international admissions.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you should definitely try to go into some, and especially that last one, because I think they'll be able to say even more like information around aid and requirements for folks who are applying
Yeah.
as international students.
Mhm.
We do have, like, we have international admissions office, and then there's also the office, what is it called? The Office of Global Learning also has Office of Global Learning. If you Google them, LMU, they
Mhm.
also have a link to like fellowships and opportunities that you might want to explore. Like they try to keep that up with like fellowship opportunities for folks who are studying internationally. So, and I'm assuming international graduate admissions may be able to speak to that.
Okay.
Definitely join that session. I highly recommend
Yes.
that. Yeah.
I will sit in on that.
Yeah.
But your information, is it available here? So if I have any other questions, I can contact you too.
Yeah, let me I could go back to it so you could, that's my email there. And
Okay.
then if you scan this QR code,
Your
it leads you to information about the program. The other place you should and I is email is what's the actual email? The SOE admissions folks, because they could
Okay.
email you the information packet for the program, which includes more information as well. I could give
Okay.
you the email. Let me see. Admissions. Let me just find it really quick for you. Um, It is SOE, so SOE info, INFO at lmu.edu. And one of the School of Education admissions folks will, they could send you over a packet, information packet of the program. And that also includes my contact information as well.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Rashida. Nice to meet you.
Yes, likewise. I'll step on to the other one. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
All right,
bye.
bye. Hi, Rafael. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering. Now, do I need to turn in all transcripts, even transcripts before I graduated from LMU and after I graduated from LMU?
Yeah, any transcripts of any higher education institution that you've ever attended. So so some students have attended more than one school to complete their bachelor's degree, or we've had instances too where folks have done a different master's degree and they're trying to get a second master's degree. And any higher education institution that you've ever attended, any transcripts from them, you want to submit those.
Does
It
that
means-
include junior colleges? I'm sorry. Does that include
Yes, you
junior
should.
college?
Yeah, you should. And you could also ask the admissions folks for the School of Education. So SOE info at lmu.edu.
Yeah.
They'll give you the specifics of like what else you need to be including in terms of transcripts. But typically it's everywhere that you've ever attended.
Okay. Now I'm very interested in financial aid. I'm gonna need some help.
Yeah, you should definitely join the session that's at 6 o'clock that they have. The graduate admissions folks are having a financial aid session. You should definitely attend that one so they could give you more information on like what do they require. Like you'll need to submit a FAFSA, the federal aid application, and then financial aid is determined based on that FAFSA. I don't have oversight over the financial aid aspect of the program. So that's why I encourage you to attend the financial aid session.
But there is financial aid for graduate students.
There's different, yes, there is. There's just varying types. It's not like for undergrad, we know like if you attended a public institution, then you have access to like at the community college, we had the BOG waiver or,
Right.
it's not like that, but it does have financial aid. And financial aid, I've had students who have work study. I've had students who get scholarships through LMU or the School of Education. I've had students get fellowships, like they apply to different types of programs. Yeah, so there's those types of opportunities.
So you said there's work study where I could be working and going to the classes concurrently?
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, there's that. Those types of opportunities. There's also just student employment opportunities. So like a site, I've had students in the past do work study plus like a different position so that they could supplement more hours. And so there's those types of things for students here at LMU. But there's also scholarship opportunities, but financial aid will be the one to tell you better, like what else is there and is there separate? I know for sure you'll have to submit the FAFSA, but aside from that, I don't know if there's other applications that they'll require you to do.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely join though. Ask those questions. Say like, what do I need to submit? And I would also I suggest asking like, by when do you need it? Because there is the FAFSA, like just national kind of deadline for priority stuff, but I think, but perhaps there's other deadlines that LMU has that I don't handle the financial aid aspect of it, so I don't know like, is there a different deadline that to be considered for particular scholarships or anything like that?
Now you said I would need letters of recommendation.
Yes, you'll need one letter recommendation. There's an optional opportunity to submit a second one if you want, but it's not required, nor does it give you extra points or anything like that. It's only if you feel like you need it. Like sometimes students are like, well, if I ask my professor for the letter, I didn't get to work with them very well, so they can't speak to everything about me, only how I did in class. And so they'll submit a second letter. But really only one is required. So I've had students submit either a faculty or supervisors, like if they've been out of school for a while, sometimes they'll ask a supervisor if they could please submit a letter, or a mentor who could speak to like anything related to either your ability to do well in graduate school, or like your like the potential for you to either continue or to pursue a career in higher education.
And they have to be recent, right?
Well, the letter, yes, I would suggest, but I mean, it could be that you had a faculty a while back ago, and I mean, they could still speak if you feel like that would be my biggest things. I always tell students, like, if you're going to ask for a letter, ask the people, whoever you're asking, are they able to write you a strong letter of recommendation? Because I rather have the strong letter of somebody who's a supervisor or a mentor than like maybe a faculty who's like, I guess I'll write you one, but I only know what your final grade was. You know what I mean? That's not a strong letter. And so think about who could write you a strong one. And then I would ask them, I always tell students, you have to ask, like, are you willing to write me a strong letter? And it gives them the opportunity to say no. If they can't write you that strong letter. And sometimes, I mean, you can't control what they write at the end, but at least you ask them if that's what they're willing to do.
You said that when will the classes start?
Summer session 2, which starts the end of June. It's like the final week of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said most of them will be online, virtual classes?
Yeah, online, hybrid, and there's opportunity, like there, if even if it's a hybrid class where maybe you might be meeting in person, all our faculty are very much open to you. Like I had a student last year, the whole year, she was in Washington, DC. She was based in DC. And so she was joining our class virtually anytime we had an in-person one. Our classes are structured where it's a combination of asynchronous and synchronous classes. So sometimes we have in-person, sometimes we have virtual synchronous classes over Zoom, and other times it's learning, like we still provide the curriculum online, and then we meet the following week to discuss it, or we have opportunities to engage with the literature online. So we have different ways that we engage through hybrid and online courses.
Yeah, because I graduated in 1979, which is eons ago, and I'm excited about going taking a class or two on campus.
Yeah, we try to do some in-person stuff too, just because I know that some folks want the flexibility of online learning, but also still want some level of connection. And so we do try to incorporate some of the in-person as well.
All right. Well, thank you for a very informative session. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael.
Take care.
Let me know if other questions come up.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.